Hello and welcome. My name is Patty Murray, and I will be your host for today's Food Safety Tech webinar, Food Safety and Quality Root Cause Analysis, Best Practices, and How Technology Can Help. Before we begin, let me provide you with some important housekeeping information. If you have any technical difficulties, please try logging off and then logging back in. If this does not work, please contact WebEx support at 866-229-3239. Please feel free to send in your questions for our speakers today throughout the event using the Q&A feature. SafetyChain will send you a copy of the slides and a link to the webinar archive by close of business on Monday, June 17th. Now it is my great pleasure to turn things over to Rick Byros, President and Publisher of Food Safety Tech, who will introduce our agenda, speakers, and moderate a Q&A session after the presentations. At that time, we will address as many of your questions as possible. Rick?
Thanks, Patty. Thanks, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsor, SafetyChain Software. SafetyChain's mission is to help food suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and service companies enforce safety and quality compliance at all points along the supply chains while creating efficiencies resulting in hard dollar return on investment. We have an informative agenda for you today, and we'll be covering food safety and root cause analysis, definitions and process, effective root cause analysis best practices, tools and techniques, and how technology can help. And if we can move to the speaker slide. Great. And our guest speaker today is Debby Newslow, President and Executive Director of Newslow Associates. Debby will be joined later in the presentation by Barbara Levin from SafetyChain. Now, I'm very excited to introduce Debby now. Debby is as I said, the President and Executive Director of Newslow Associates, a leading food safety management consulting organization, and a frequent speaker and author on food safety and auditing issues. We've worked with Debby for the last year on food safety tech, and she has spoken at several of the food safety tech conferences. Debby's area of expertise includes FSSC, ISO, HACCP, SQF, BRC, GMP, food hygiene, crisis management, and other related systems, processes, and HACCP prerequisite programs. Debby has a wide range of experience working with more than 200 companies in the food industry, and she is the winner of the 2013 NSF Leadership Award for Training. Now I'd like to hand things over to Debby.
Thanks, Rick, and welcome everybody. Well, we get to talk about a very popular topic, root cause analysis today. This is a topic that we could start to talk about now and be still talking about it a week from now. So we're going to provide you with the best overview we can, some of the key factors to really focus on when you are looking at your root cause analysis or performing a root cause analysis or even trying to decide if you need a root cause analysis. Objectives of a root cause analysis is to effectively determine the root cause of the issue, what actually caused it. We're going to briefly review some appropriate tools that may be applied. We're going to review some examples, both good and bad, understand their importance and understand why an example is good or bad, and the importance of performing an effective root cause analysis. And finally, the follow-up for effectiveness. I've used that word effective several times in this slide because, as those of you know who have been involved in system implementation, effective is the current word of choice, because we can't do anything unless we know that we can do it, but we must know that what we did was effective. A corrective action is a term that's been around for quite a while, and preventive action. Corrective action is to detect, analyze, and eliminate a nonconformity in order to prevent it from reoccurring. A preventive action is just about the same, except it's detecting and analyzing and eliminating a potential nonconformance, and both of which must be done in a timely manner based on the potential risk. Now, I'm not reading the slides exactly. The slides are more for reference. But really, when we talk about appropriate for the potential risk, we mean how much risk is it going to cause your operation. Obviously, if it's high risk, it needs to be done quickly and effectively, where something of lower or no risk may be something that could be done as a preventive action or something for the future. But preventive is what we all talk about now. With HARPC and with everything that's going on in our world, we must be preventative. We must prevent issues. You know, in the old days, we could really learn from our mistakes. But in today's world, we really can't make those mistakes. We need to do everything everything possible to prevent occurrence of an issue and to protect the food safety of our products. This flow chart is kind of a funny, supposed to be funny, but really what it does, it really reflects what not to do. Many times when we have an issue come up, you know, we'll maybe ignore it and hope it'll go away. Well, it just was a one-off occurrence. You know, it's not going to happen again. We don't have to do anything about it. Or, you know, we might blame somebody, maybe blame the supplier. That's something pretty common. Or who else could we blame? Or how can we hide it? Or how can we, again, pretend like it didn't happen? We can't do that today with today's problems. And problem resolution is to face it, you know, head on, to really look at what the issue is and what we need to do to correct it. A root cause analysis is a well-developed process for investigating existing or potential problems that lead to permanent fixes. We need to correct the situation so in every possible way we can so that it doesn't reoccur. And the ownership also is not the quality department like it used to be. The ownership needs to be by the department that is responsible for the issue. Those are the folks that know the most about it, and they can really delve in and really look at what's going on. You know, in the past, as a quality professional, I remember it all too well when, you know, it was up to us to identify issues, and then nothing would, if it wasn't fixed or it wasn't done in a timely manner, then we would try to fix it. We would try to, you know, do everything we could so that it would go away. But when, you know, now it's really up to individual departments or areas of responsibility to take ownership for issues and do the very best they can to evaluate them and correct them. Root cause, you know, basic definition, it's a rooted, deep, basic, fundamental, underlying issue of why something goes wrong. The root cause analysis is a method of problem solving to identify root causes of faults or problems that cause operating events. What really happened that caused this to happen? A root cause analysis practice tries to solve problems by attempting to identify correct root causes of events as opposed to simply addressing the symptoms, not putting a Band-Aid on the issue, covering up, patching it, or whatever. We really need to see what the cause was so that we can truly address and apply whatever fix we think is necessary. So by focusing on correction of root causes, the problem reoccurrence can be prevented. Sometimes we'll call things root cause failure analysis. You'll hear that term used quite frequently. And this actually recognizes that sometimes complete prevention is more than one cause or more than one corrective action. That's where the analysis is so important. So as I mentioned earlier, times have changed. Unlike days of old, root cause analysis isn't just a quality function. All associates must learn, apply concept when related to their areas of competency. And all associates must know how to analyze issues of affecting good performance. So again, I know I've said it before, and I can't overemphasize, this can't be just a quality function. We had several questions come in beforehand, and folks were asking, well, how do we know who's responsible? How do we know when to apply it? It's got to be a team effort, and it can't just be one or two departments or individuals who's bird dogging to try to correct it. It has to be a team effort. The old assumption, once a product passes from one process department to another, responsibility, the past process ends, no longer part of it. Each process step is interdependent upon the others now. Root cause analysis requires a thorough analysis of the complete process and not what we used to call little silos. You know, in the old days, if we worked in the lab, we would do the best we could. We'd get the samples. We'd perform the tests. We'd give the results. But many times didn't have a clue of how that would affect, as a domino effect, how everything else happened. Now, even as an auditor, many times we'll ask folks, who is your internal customer? We do get the deer in the headlight look. You know, what do you mean, who's our internal customer? But really, those are the folks that are depending on you to meet your objectives and goals and to do the job you need to do, so when it passes down, then they can take that and move forward and avoid some of the domino effect. So the process itself, the root of the problem must be accurately identified so that it can be effectively corrected and resolved. Determine what happened, how it happened, why it happened, and what must be done to prevent it from happening again. Many times we see something, oh, that's easy, that's training, so we train. But it's not always the first thing you see that might be causing the problem, or maybe that's only part of the problem. That's why once that is implemented, we must go back and have enough data to measure effectiveness and then see where we are on the road to fixing it. So again, effectiveness. The root cause analysis must be adequately defined, have sufficient resources. Make sure if you really have a significant issue that's going to take certain resources to address it, that you have the resources. Must be performed by trained personnel and utilize the team approach, and be performed in a timely manner based on the potential risk. So what not to do? Well, really what happens is it's very common to identify the root cause by simply restating the complaint. We'll see some examples in just a minute. But the root cause is what caused the problem, not what happened. Also, we must thoroughly, many issues are occurred or poor results are obtained when it's not thoroughly researching the fundamental cause becomes the major reasons for its occurrence. What really did cause it? So let's look at an example here. Problem statement: the field safety inspector entered pre-harvest assessment data incorrectly. Root cause statement: the safety inspector entered the wrong information. That really doesn't tell us any more than what the problem said. The problem statement said it was wrong, the proper information was not put in or was put in incorrectly, and now the root cause is the inspector entered the wrong information. Corrective action statement: I spoke again to the inspector and explained the importance of entering the information correctly. Well, that can be a good thing to do, but is this a true root cause analysis? When we look at this, there was no inquiry into what caused the inspector to record the wrong information. What was the cause of the error, or is the solution just to blame the inspector? Was the issue fixed permanently so that it will never happen again? Sometimes things can be fixed by just telling someone they did it wrong, but if it's a true root cause of something causing this, it's very likely it's going to happen again. So root cause process, the root cause analysis, is a prerequisite to an effective corrective action. You cannot fix the issue if the cause is unknown. The accuracy and thoroughness of the root cause analysis directly affects the ability to truly fix the issue so it doesn't reoccur. We must know what happened so that we can fix it, not just put a Band-Aid on it. So an effective root cause analysis avoids blaming people, digs down to the actual underlying cause, does not jump to conclusions, and can be verified for effectiveness after corrective action is applied. Some tools and techniques that we might want to think about, and most of you are probably familiar with. Of course, document and record review, interviews, flowcharts. Flowcharts are great because they give you a picture of what's going on. The 5 W's, brainstorming, cause and effect analysis, and Pareto analysis. Many of those tools have been around for a really, really long time and are used in varying degrees of effectiveness in certain operations. When we look at documents, a document defines the requirements for the products and or the processes. The documents explain how things are supposed to happen. A record provides proof that tasks are completed per defined requirements and provides objective evidence of compliance and status. So this is very important because this is very important because the documents define what needs to be done, and the records show proof that it's being done. And those are used for the complete reference. Interviews are important because we're going out there to interview the people who are supposed to be doing something, and interviewing them, trying to find out, identify the documented and the undocumented activities, aid in providing an understanding of the process, and also may be the only source of information about the process. So if it's not a defined process supported by records, then we walk through it with the folks responsible. Flowcharts again, flowchart is an excellent tool that we're seeing being used much more now in today's world. It illustrates a picture of the process. Flowcharts enhance the understanding of the process or a series of process and focuses on linkages and handoffs. Flowcharts are used more and more now in today's world to draw the picture of exactly what's supposed to happen. And when you flowchart it out, a lot of times you can see right in there, in that picture, what may or may not have gone wrong. Important tools. We mentioned some of these tools in the previous slide. The 5 Ws. 5 Ws are good. A lot of people are using this more and more now. They trace back to the sequence of events that led to the problem and or nonconformance. For instance, a lot of 5 Ws includes who is it about, what happened, when did it take place, where did it take place, why did it happen, and some people even add an H to the 5 Ws saying how did it happen. So those are good questions to ask in your investigation. The fishbone diagram commonly applies the Ishikawa document. I could say that earlier today. And that really is, again, kind of like the fishbone document. It's been around for years. And that kind of applies people, methods, machines, materials, measurements, and environment. And you really ask those certain questions to see, how are these issues causing or could they be contributed to the problem? Brainstorming is really a no-brainer, just a joke. Brainstorming, seriously, is creating an exercise to get the ideas flowing. Depending on how intense or how complex the problem may be, you may get some project teams set up to really evaluate, sit around and think, well, how could this happen? In our experience, this is what we've seen. Brainstorming is an excellent tool to really figure out what went wrong and how we can fix it. Cause and effect analysis, a lot of times that really links back to the fishbone diagram, but applies some of the same specific parameters. Pareto, that's been around forever. Again, Pareto, the old 80-20 rule. Trying to graph it out and analyze to see, most of the time, the key comment there is a large majority of the problems, 80%, are produced by 20%, of the causes or whatever. So these are tools, and there is no cookbook. There is no defined specific actual when should we apply these. It's just having knowledge of the situation and what to apply when. So let's look at the analysis again. Clearly define and evaluate the problem or nonconformance. Determine if it requires a true root cause analysis. Some things just take common sense to fix. Some root cause analysis are pretty simple. Forms are not being completed properly. Usually the first thing everyone say, well, training isn't good. So you train. But then once you've trained, you've got to make sure you have enough data after the training to see if it's effective. If you're doing these forms every quarter, it's going to take a while to get enough data to say, yeah, we were effective. And training might help, but it may not be the 100% of the cause of the issue. Maybe the forms are not correct, or maybe they don't have the right data or something, or the requirements are not right. So that's where you've really got to get enough data to look at the effectiveness. And I find this a lot, is that folks sometimes get into a real hurry to hurry up and get things closed. Oh, we had 5 corrective actions identified last week, and we got them all closed now. It really is looking at the effectiveness. One of my clients runs 9 weeks out of the whole year, so they have to wait a whole year. They find an issue, they think they have it corrected, but they have to wait till they run again to decide if it's effective. So the important thing is that you get the corrective action done in a timely manner, and then you do the best you can to evaluate the effectiveness in a time period that provides you the data to evaluate. And Barbara's going to talk more about the collection of data and the use of data in this process, which is invaluable. So again, clearly define and evaluate the problem of nonconformance, determine if it requires true root cause analysis, perform the investigation using appropriate tools, and this is where education and training comes in, to really understand what tools to use when. Some people require these tools all the time, and they just get hung up on silly activities. So you've really got to put your thinking cap on and figure out when certain items on a case-by-case basis need to be applied. Determine the appropriate corrective actions, make the change, apply the corrective action, verify that the change worked, and confirm it was effective. If it's not effective, you try again. Or if it's not 100% effective, again, you might have fixed it so it's better, but is it really gone? Example 2, another example of a poor root cause analysis. A safety procedure is poorly written. You know, what does that say? I mean, that's kind of a finding. I mean, I don't even know if that's even a good finding, but it sure doesn't say anything about what caused the problem. Here, under the correct part, procedure for rework has an 8-point font and no illustrations, making it hard to read. Therefore, associates do not reference it, increasing the likelihood that mistakes may happen again. So, in other words, the finding probably was that folks were not familiar with the of the safety procedure, and the fact that it's poorly written doesn't really tell you how to fix it. But this correct comment takes us to actions like bigger typeface, use of photos, and avoids words such as wrong, bad, poor, failed, and careless. Now, this particular example probably isn't going to require any of those tools. It's going to require just common sense, like why aren't we using this procedure, and look at it and say, wow, you know, if I had to follow that procedure, I'd be crazy. So, or I certainly wouldn't follow it either. And then that's when you kind of look at it and say, well, what do we need to do to make it a more user-friendly document? Another example, truck drivers were observed wandering unescorted inside the warehouse. It kind of sounds like a finding to me. It doesn't tell you anything about what caused it. They just states that they were wandering in the warehouse. The correct root cause could be facility design does not provide for a secure area for truck drivers so that they do not need to enter the facility to access a restroom or a break room. Now, granted, this could require a pretty complex capital investment. So the person evaluating this may need to come up with a something that can be applied to keep the truck drivers from wandering around the interior of the facility until they can truly build a facility that really works, you know, that can actually be in place to correct this. So something they have to really look at and see what can they do, because the wrong truck drivers wandering unescorted inside the warehouse is a huge potential issue that needs to be addressed, and you can't wait. You just can't ignore it until you have time to build a separate break area. So this is an example, again, of putting your thinking cap on, brainstorming, and saying, okay, we obviously need to put in a capital budget, but what are we going to do in the meantime? So in conclusion, root cause must be identified and effectively addressed. Use specific and accurate descriptions of the situation. Continuously apply tools that resolve issues once and for all. Avoid negative and or vague words. Focus on identifying the causes rather than the human error. Fix the systems, not the people. Confirm effectiveness. I know that it would be great if we could just say, do this, this, and this, and everything would be fixed, or we would be applying the root cause. But honestly, it's all about education and understanding the process and then applying that on each and every case to figure out, well, you know, what is the root cause and what are we going to do to fix it? And some issues are harder than others, which would require a more specific tool, like a fishbone. But I do have clients that they want to apply all those tools, even the simplest of issues. So that's where you've really got to put your thinking cap on, understand, and look at what's the cause and what are we going to do and to fix it, and fix it in a manner that's effective so that it doesn't return. Okay, Rick, it's your turn again.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Appreciate it. Good presentation. We've got a series of questions that have been coming in related to your presentation, which we will get to after the next presentation. Having said that, I'd like to introduce Barbara Levin, the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Customer Community and the co-founder of SafetyChain Software, who is our sponsor for today's event. Barbara, would you like to take over now?
Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Debbie, for that informative presentation. We're going to take some of the principles that Debbie just discussed with us and now look at how technology, and particularly food safety chain management technologies, can help you with root cause analysis and perform them both efficiently and effectively. And then we will be opening it up for your questions. So, you know, when we look at root cause analysis and some of the information that Debbie told us, we're really looking at two main causes for performing root cause analysis. One is the most traditional, which is finding out what happened. there's been a customer complaint or there's been a safety event. And some of the most typical reasons for root cause analysis are the taste or look of the product is bad. The package is defective. Product is spoiled sooner than its expiration date. There might be foreign materials. And, of course, in worst-case scenarios, making people sick. Now, obviously, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of reasons to perform root cause analysis, but these are the ones that seem to be most common. But with the technologies that are available today, and there are all kinds of different food safety and quality assurance solutions out today, root cause analysis doesn't have to be just for finding out a problem anymore. You're collecting data, you're analyzing data, and this data has really, that second big use, and that is continuous improvement. In addition to finding out what happened to make sure it doesn't happen again, when you're using technology for food safety and quality assurance, and then you have that technology and all that data for root cause analysis, you also have the ability to analyze data through production and really farm to fork. That data can give you opportunities to reduce variabilities, which of course can then lower non-compliance events and even reduce cost of goods made. So there's sort of the reactive and the proactive reasons for root cause analysis and for using technology to be able to get both benefits with the maximum return. So what's getting in the way then? If root cause analysis can provide you with both, a faster way to find a problem or get you to a problem, and if it can be used to actually help to, have improvements and help reduce costs, then why isn't it happening more frequently? Well, there are several things that get in the way. One is was the information that would be required for that root cause analysis, was it documented in the first place? We like to think everything is documented. We also know that doesn't always happen, or it doesn't always happen in a way that you can get your hands on the information. Some of the things that are coming out with the FSMA rules are going to require more documentation. But even if it was documented, what's getting in the way is getting hands on the data. I hear this all the time, that information is everywhere. It can be on paper. It can be in binders. It can be in emails. Some of it might be in actual systems. But as one of my colleagues likes to say, just because something is electronic doesn't mean it's automated. I speak to people all the time that say, well, we have all that data, but it's in different systems, in different plants, and the systems don't talk to each other, and it's very hard to then get all of that information together without many, many, many hours of putting information into spreadsheets. So even if it was documented, another challenge then is how fast can I get my hands on that data? Third thing that gets on the way is, well, let's say it was documented, and let's say you were able to get your hands on the data. Was it accurate? Was it error-free? Was the information that was entered about safety and quality test results, for example, entered correctly? Very important for root cause analysis, for audits, was the time and date correct? Too often, we do hear of the busy folks that are out there on the plant all day long, and then they come in at the end of the day and they're recording information manually. That might not always hold up when it comes to really trying to get to the root of a problem as quickly and as accurately as possible. And then last is the data easy to manipulate? Can I report on it? Can I do analysis on it? Can I do performance benchmarks? Can I trend that data to find ways to improve my processes? So these are the components that are getting in the way of effective root cause analysis. And that's why so many FSQA departments these days are turning towards technology. There are a lot of technologies out there. Obviously, you've got to really analyze, where your weak spots are and where your biggest challenges are, and find the ones that are correct for you. What we're really addressing here today is food safety chain management. Before we, can look at the benefits of this, to get over these 5 obstacles that we just looked at a very high level, let's look at how these types of solutions work. 4 key areas that contribute to effective root cause analysis for both the reactive, finding the problem, and the proactive, making sure it doesn't happen again, and continuous improvement. Automation, the centralizing of data and data analysis, the ability to take corrective actions as quickly as possible, and then having all of that information, time and date stamped, so that you've got that accessibility and visibility. So when you're using these types of solutions, one of the things that happens is all your specifications, your good manufacturing or agricultural practices, your standard operating procedures, documents from suppliers, they're set up. And when information comes in, there's automatic alerts that the information is being received. There's also automatic alerts when there's an expired document, for example, that you're going to need, and making sure that your suppliers are getting you the information that they need to get you before you take their supplies and put them into production. When all of the information and all safety and quality test results are coming in to this type of solution, they're being analyzed against specification in real time, and that's all happening from one central repository. So even if you have multiple plants that are operating, for example, all of that information is coming into one place. So no more having to figure out where all that data is. Because the data is being analyzed in real time, you're finding out in real time if there's a problem, if a COA or a test result doesn't meet specification. And automatic alerts are issued in a lot of these types of solutions to get the right people notified in the fastest manner possible of a non-compliant result. So, of course, what this does is keep a non-compliant ingredient, for example, from going into production. All of that data, is then in a database that's easily accessed and has unalterable time and date stamps that you can access for root cause analysis and that you can access for continuous improvement. So what are the key benefits? Again, can't emphasize enough that single repository of unalterable time and date stamped data. So when you're going back and you're trying to find where a problem occurred, you've got the right information. That helps you understand, when you have to, when the problem started, and then that helps you identify all of the information and the product and the ingredients and materials that might have come in after that date so that you can find your problem faster. You can get to this information fast. It's searchable. I think of some of the food safety events that, have happened over the past several years. There was one about 18 months ago that, was a ground protein product. Well, it took 6 months to find the cause of that product. And because within those 6 months, people weren't even sure where to start and where to look, people were still getting sick until they identified the problem and were able to get product off of shelves. And so when you're doing root cause analysis, you want to get to the test results. You want to be able to find the corrective or preventative actions that were taken. A lot of systems even allow you to have digitized pictures before and after. So having a searchable, real-time, up-to-date, centralized database is going to allow you to get your hands on that information fast. It also allows you to be proactive as often as possible versus reactive. If you have real-time notification that a non-compliant ingredient, that a test didn't pass, and you can catch that before it goes into production, then you're helping to reduce problems or the chance for problems before they start. You've got historical and current trends that are now going to allow you to have continuous improvement. For example, if you've got a spec that's always at the high margin of your high-low deviation percentages, it allows you to reconfigure specifications so that you run the risk of having a problem much less frequently if you've got, again, that data to be able to do those types of analyses. And of course, what would we all like to do? Reduce the risk, reduce the need for root cause analysis in the first place. If you can prevent bad product from coming in the first place and prevent bad product from going out in the first place, then you're going to have to do far fewer of these types of activities. Before I turn it back to Rick now to take your questions, and I think we're going to go out of full screen so that you can submit your questions more easily. Just a little bit about SafetyChain. As Rick mentioned, our mission is to help all participants in a food supply chain enforce safety and quality at every point. You can see it's a very comprehensive farm-to-fork safety and quality solution that helps you save time and money and create operational efficiencies that lead to a return on investment. Helps you eliminate manual processes and errors, prevent withdrawals, rejections, and recalls. Again, centralized date-stamped database of all your food safety and quality information and corrective actions and supplier documents helps you respond on demand to customer inquiries and regulatory and third-party and customer, and of course your internal audits. And ultimately what this does is help you protect your market value and brand. And I think one slide of commercial is enough. So, Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you so we can get Debbie and, if there's any for myself, questions.
Okay, great. All right, Barbara, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Great presentation. Debbie on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And Barbara, you still with us?
I am.
Terrific. Okay, good. Well, I've actually got a slew of questions that have come in, and I'm going to start with you, Barbara, and can you expand upon or explain the difference between tracking and traceability?
I'm sorry, Rick, I was on mute there. Yeah, thank you. Good question. I do think that there is some confusion in the market about the difference between traceability and tracking technologies. Traceability is what we just discussed, is the ability to go back and look at all of your data, take the steps that Debbie discussed, the brainstorming, and find the cause of a safety or quality event. So there it's about the problem. Traceability is finding where a problem might have occurred. Tracking technology is when you have found the source of a problem, getting the product back, being able to actually, get down to knowing, which ingredient in a package or a finished product was the problem, knowing where those ingredients went and getting the product back. So one is about finding the cause, and one is about, tracking down to, SKU numbers to actually get product off shelves as quickly as possible to prevent people from getting sick. Rick?
Yes?
Yes, that was my answer.
Okay, terrific. I'm sorry. Debbie, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday in the rehearsal, but it's come up from an attendee, and it's really questioning the terminology that you used in one of the slides about the 5 W's versus the 5 Y's. And the attendee's asking, isn't it the 5 Y's as a tool more than it is the 5 W's that gets us to the root causes? And I'm wondering if this is just nomenclature, or is it, you know, could you kind of expand on this a little bit?
Right. You know, originally we had the 5 Y's, and then we changed it to the 5 W's.
Right.
Because really they're kind of interchangeable. The 5 Y's, well, the 5 W's is who is it about, what happened, when did it take place, where did it take place, and why did it happen. You know, where the 5 Y's will ask why, you know, why it happened, and some other Y's as it's being applied. So again, it's really how you really interpret it and how you really focus on what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they're all tools, and they're all it would apply under the right situation.
Okay.
So I don't know if that really answers the question, but it's a terminology. It's a way. You know, the 5 Y's is important because it's asking why in 5 different ways, but the 5 W's translate into, you know, like, again, evaluating the issue to see who is about, what happened, and so forth.
Okay, great. I'm going to throw this out to both of you, and I'm going to first ask Debbie to comment, and then Barbara, could you join or chime in on this question? And we've heard this time and time again. You know, at various webinars, various conferences, it's, you know, trying to convince top management that there are insufficient resources. And then, you know, you can even apply this to a root cause. I'm going to combine these two questions into one because I think it's relevant. You know, let me start, you know, kind of, again, addressing this to Debbie first. Is there any advice on how you would work to convince top management that the culture may be the root cause and not one person, and that the culture change needs to start at the top? I mean, so we're really kind of asking, we're asking, how do you change a food safety culture, which I think is a bigger question, but can we apply any of this root cause analysis and trying to use this as a tool to convince upper management? I guess that's probably the best way of narrowing this down.
Well, that's a tough, you know, that's a tough sell because it's very hard sometimes to get management involved. And, you know, all the food safety standards have gone to great efforts to define and then redefine every time they're revised to really focus on management understanding their involvement. But basically, it comes down to selling, you know, putting it to them like, okay, here's what's going to happen if we don't do it this way. And, you know, if we don't have the resources. And the way the standards are really defined now, that it's going to stand out like a sore thumb if we come in there and things are not done, and it looks like, you know, they don't, you know, why are they not done? Well, you know, obviously it's a resource issue, but the resources aren't addressed. So, you know, it becomes a cause and effect again. You know, if we do this, if we don't do it this way, this is what's going to happen, but who's going to do it? And is it another flavor of the month or quality program or, you know, something like that? So it's a tough sell, and, you know, it really depends on the situation, depends on the personality of the management. They have to understand that it, you know, what the repercussions could be and so forth. But now we're talking about, you know, in the old days, we were talking about more quality. We're talking about meeting customer requirements, and of course, those are important to stay in business. But now we're talking about the safety of the food, you know, the safety of the food supply. And if this happens, here's what's going to happen. So, you know, we have to stay focused and you know, be convincing and do a good selling job and say this is what happens if it doesn't happen.
Okay. Well, and Barbara, I'm going to ask the question, but I want to define it in sort of your role. At the beginning of the presentation, we talked about an ROI, and we talked about that technology can provide an ROI, although there's an investment up front. Ultimately, it pays off, and maybe that is an angle that can be used because now you're talking financial speak to the financial folks. Would you agree with that? And if so, you want to expand on it? And if you don't, you want to come up with
Actually, you and I are thinking very much along the same lines here. The way that I was going to address that is, creating a culture of safety, has all of the, the obvious benefits. And one of the ways to do that, it's not the only way, but, when you look at safety and quality programs and investments, they can have a very positive impact on return on investment. When you're finding problems before they start, and you're keeping, contaminated ingredients, for example, from going into production, you can lower your cost of goods made. I also think that, it helps on the sales side. I hear this from our customers all the time, because I ask that question. I always ask, was it hard to get buy-in? How did you get buy-in? And, one of the things that companies, have today that can be a fabulous, competitive advantage is showing that you actually are doing everything that you can in the areas of safety and quality, that it's a top-down priority. Because this, in the end, the people that are selling your products and, and the retail and services, when you can assure safe product, either that you're selling to these folks, or if you are a retailer or services company that you're selling or serving to consumers, knowing that there's a culture of quality from the top actually can help you be more competitive in the market. And so I think that by being able to show an ROI of a food safety and quality-driven culture, actually can get top management involved. And it's not that they're not. Obviously, everybody has safety as a priority. But to spend money, you've got to show that it can pay for itself. It's a very low-profit industry, and I think that we're seeing that cultural shift now from viewing safety and quality as actually something that can lower cost of goods made and can provide a competitive advantage. And I think that we're seeing a cultural shift in that area.
I think also there are, we've worked together on a couple of different webinars in the past, and I know you have a lot of resources on this topic on your website. And so folks that are interested in pursuing this a little bit further can certainly visit the SafetyChain website for additional information on that. Going back to the traceability question, let me just read this verbatim. What is it that we trace that enables causes to be identified, more so than when we trace? And I'd throw that out to either one of you.
Debbie, I'm going to let you take that one.
Okay.
You want me to reread it?
Yeah, would you please? Okay. I heard it, but say it one more time.
All right. What is it that we trace that enables causes to be identified, more so than when we trace?
Well, again, it's going to depend on the situation and what you're looking at. You go back to, the question, and we were questioning about the whys. Why does this happen? Why did the process fail? Why? Just keep asking the whys. And sometimes you trace it, and sometimes you will trace back to, what actually caused it. And then that would be what you trace. But then how you trace it, if you have the data to trace it effectively, you can get to the cause a lot quicker and more effectively. Mm-hmm. But, again, it's going to depend on what you're looking at. If you're looking at, something simple like why is the battery dead, then, you're going to say, why is the battery dead? Why is the alternator not functioning? So you're going to see how far back do you have to trace, and what data do you have to look at to see when you actually get to the true cause of the issue. But so many times when we go to try to fix a problem and ask those questions, we reach a dead end because we either don't have the record or we don't trace back to the actual, cause. We run into a dead end with something like, well, if we knew this, we would have more data, but we don't keep that kind of information. So then, well, why don't we keep that? And if we kept it, what would happen? So I don't know if that really answers. I think it should answer the question.
Okay.
Based on
at the end of
how we evaluate.
Okay. At the end of one of the last slides, we'll have your contact details, and that if folks want to reach out to you directly, I'm sure that you'd be happy to answer the questions via email.
That would be great, because sometimes the answers sound, Rick, like we're talking in riddles, and it's really a case-by-case basis as to what went wrong. Because again, some items don't even require a huge, maybe just some common sense, where others do require some pretty significant detail to actually get to the root cause and fix it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have heard a couple of more sort of food safety culture questions come in. Let me keep one of these going, and then we'll move on to a few other questions on different topics. But when a culture as a root cause, like training as a solution, is a too often used general bucket or pigeonhole, why was that behavior exhibited? And Debbie, do you want to expand on this a little bit? In terms of, I guess, is it just that the food safety culture is the root cause of many of the problems? And I guess more, how do you tangibly identify that and then try and then convince top management that they got to change? Because if you keep tracing back to that, they're not buying into the proper food safety programs, procedures, investments, and resources, and that's ultimately the root cause. I mean, do you build that up as a case?
Well, it's interesting that we should be focusing on that. Frankie Annis wrote a whole book on culture and food safety culture. And I think he stated that you must, in order to be successful in anything that we do, we must create or sustain a food safety culture, and that it's critical that we think that way. So, he also stated that independency of each of the various efforts of the organization must practice that culture and thinking about food culture rather than, try to just, put Band-Aids on it. So, again, it goes back to a selling job, and do people really believe in the system and what it's going to cause, what the positiveness is it's going to cause. So culture change is really, really tough, and the toughest part about that is that's something that they don't ever teach us in school. You get out there and you really, really have to, learn different personalities and learn, to believe in what you're doing and, focus on that. So, I mean, again, talking in riddles, but it's a case-by-case basis. If folks have to understand, what could go wrong and, where we are in the process and how we control. We're proactive controlling with, FSMA is going to require it. And our customers are requiring it because they don't want to risk people getting sick. It's a huge risk, and, they don't want to be put in the middle of that. And I don't blame them. I don't want to get sick out of what I eat either, and I don't want my pets to get sick from it. So you have to focus on, what do we need to change and what kind of thought pattern do we have to do, and it has to start from the top. It has to start from the top.
Okay. We saw when you and I were analyzing the reasons why folks were wanting to attend this webinar and what they were hoping to get out of it, and then as a result, we've also actually had a couple of related questions, and it's really related to GFSI. Is there a specific method or process to apply root cause to comply with the specific standards, such as FSSC 22000, BRC, and SQF?
Each standard pretty much has their own wording. Pretty much, you've got to have an effective corrective action process that, applies root cause to the issue and fix it so it doesn't come back. So it really isn't standard specific. Depending on the standard of choice that you choose, you've got to read that wording and be sure that specifically you apply to it. But basically, you need a strong, effective corrective action process, corrective preventive action process that requires that you identify the root cause, you fix this, and identify the root cause, come up with a corrective action, and apply that in a timely manner based on the potential risk. Those words right now are quoting some of the standards, but they all really, in their own type of wording, require just that: effective, fixing problems effectively, being proactive, and fixing potential problems before they even happen. Being proactive and really showing a strong focus and dedication to that activity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Is there a cookbook process for evaluating the root cause that can be applied to whatever goes wrong?
The only cookbook is to understand the process, educate yourself, and understand that just about every single one that comes up may be different. You've got to apply your knowledge, your experience, your education, and common sense to here's the finding, what is it going to take to evaluate the root cause, to truly identify the cause, and to truly apply a corrective action so it's effective and not give up on the first try. Not we did the training, we're done, don't bother us type thing. Training is a stopgap for so much. Everybody blames everything on training. And sometimes training does fix it. And many times training makes it better. But does it really, you've got to stay in focus on it. It can't become a race to the end, like hurry up and close it. So many people will use a measurement like, open corrective actions as a measurement. Really, open corrective actions isn't the issue. It's timely corrective action. Corrective actions that have been identified with a time period based on the potential risk, and that things are on time. I would rather have 20 corrective actions out there that are open and on time based on the potential risk than have 20 closed that were never, ever evaluated for effectiveness. They were all closed in 1 week. So, and many times people, they use those kind of goals. Our goal is to close all corrective actions within 1 week of writing them, which is just ludicrous.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have time for one more question. Barbara, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. One last question here. All right. How do we really learn how to do root cause analysis and apply the tools? Who needs to know this, and how do we apply it throughout our system? And I'd address that to both of you.
Barbara, you go first this time.
You want me to reread it?
Yes, thank you, Rick.
Okay. How do we really learn how to do root cause analysis and apply the tools? Who needs to know this, and how do we apply it through our system?
Well, I think to the point that Debbie made earlier, anybody who is involved with the product, not just the quality person, anybody that touches that product needs to understand all the proper and appropriate procedures and needs to be involved then in helping to find a problem. And I think everybody in an organization needs to know this. And in terms of how do you understand that? I think that you work with folks like Debbie to come in and help build a program for you, and work with a consultant who can put the processes and the procedures in place. I think that putting in programs in place such as internal recalls, putting technology, internal recall practice, putting technology in place so that you have better control over safety and quality data, test results. I think all of that contributes. Debbie, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Well, I'm thinking about this question, and I'm also thinking about some of the previous questions about, application and how you become success. And I was looking at this reference to, I mentioned Frankie Annis's book, and also a quote from Stephen Covey, and some of the other folks talk about management versus leadership, and that management works within the system, leadership works on the system. those are things, we need food safety leaders, and management must be committed, yes, but they also must lead by actions. And that's when we're going to really be, successful is, not only matter of using, the great tools. I mean, the greatest tools in the world. I mean, if you're a carpenter, I mean, I can go to Home Depot right now and buy some really cool tools, but how I use them, that could be disastrous. So, I mean, it's knowing the tools and being able to use them effectively, and leading the charge, and really showing people, because everybody agrees that success is going to depend on effective leadership, and who is that going to be. Now, we can stay here on the phone and talk about this all day long, and it's great to be philosophical, but it's got to come from the top, and that's the way it is in today's world.
Yeah.
So we got to focus. So that's just something to kind of bring it together.
Well, I agree with you, and just in conclusion, I mean, there's been more talk and more questions related, or comments even related to the whole food safety culture issue, and this isn't going away. Both food safety tech and some of the events that we are doing in the future will address these issues, and it's not how to change. I mean, it is to a degree how to change the food safety culture. It's more how to influence food safety culture in the upper management. And what we hope to do in these type of situations is give advice to food safety and quality professionals on how to speak to the C-suite, how to convey their message, because I think that it's a communication issue. And I think that will help people in influencing food safety culture. But ultimately, it's going to, like you said, the decisions ultimately be at the top, and what we can do as food safety and quality professionals is help influence those decisions. So that's it for the questions, or at least the time that we have. Patty, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Great. Thank you, Debbie, Barbara, and Rick, and thank you to all the attendees for sending in your questions. If we didn't get to your question during the live event, we will get to them offline. And as Rick mentioned, feel free to reach out to SafetyChain and to Debbie, and you can call SafetyChain at 888-235-7540 or visit their website at safetychain.com. And to learn more about DL Newslow & Associates, you can reach Debbie at 407-290-2754, and her website is newslow.com. And also feel free to check out Food Safety Tech from time to time, especially the Supply Chain FSQA Resource Center. There you will find studies and reports, strategic white papers, industry updates, webinar news, and archives, and we're constantly updating that. And to access that resource, you can visit foodsafetytech.com and click on the Resource Center. And SafetyChain will be emailing you a copy of the slides and a link to the recording of this webinar by close of business on Monday, June 17th. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day. That concludes our event.